women of Indigenous heritage, to the calls for action, all of which the Government of Canada is committed to continue to work in ultimately, Madam Speaker, I truly believe by empowering and working with Indigenous leaders and people that we will make the desired changes, and hopefully it'll be quicker, as quickly as possible.
Statements by members. Déclaration, questions orales. L'honorable député de Kingston et des Îles.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize two outstanding individuals from my riding of Kingston and the Islands. Reed and Ben, most famously known for their morning show, Reed and Ben in the Morning, are so much more than your average radio personalities. Whether it's attending local events, celebrating our 2021 graduates, or promoting Pride Month, they always do a great job in showcasing the best that Kingston has to offer. But it doesn't stop there, Madam Speaker. At times when our community needs cheerleaders the most, they are always there to rally support and lift up spirits. In the height of the third wave of the pandemic, they painted and hung a large banner in front of Kingston General Hospital, which simply read, "Thank you, KGH." Last week, following the terrorist attack in London, Ontario, aimed at the Muslim population, Reed and Ben promptly headed to our local mosque with sidewalk chalk in hand and scribed words of love and inclusion for the most affected by this act. Reed and Ben, thank you for your energy, passion, and all that you do for our community.
The honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Madam Speaker, energy security should be a concern for all Canadians. Distribution of Canadian energy through networks of pipelines is paramount to withstand shocks from a wide range of sources like natural disasters, geopolitical conflicts, and other emerging threats. If energy distribution, like Line 5 being potentially shutting down, will initiate shortages causing astronomical increases in the cost of everything. The Liberal government's lack of understanding of the importance of ensuring reliable and cost-effective energy has put Canada at a huge disadvantage compared to other nations. As the Liberal government continues to spin a narrative of our economic standing globally, it is only countered with the facts. Thanks to the pending Bill C-10, the Liberals will be able to shut down what we can hear and see, just like North Korea. Canada was once a nation that embraced freedom of speech, but I guess that will be a footnote in history, if not censored by Bill C-10. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Long Range Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Since the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador has taken incredible measures to keep the pandemic away from our island shores. In fact, there's been a ban on non-essential travel to our province for over a year now, and the results have spoken for themselves. Compared to other areas of Canada, my riding in the Long Range Mountains has seen relatively small case counts. However, as we turn the new corner of the pandemic and vaccines are more available, the travel ban is about to be lifted, and Newfoundland and Labrador will once again be open to Canada. Travel to my province and the Long Range Mountains, of course, will be allowed again as of July 1st, with folks having their second shot of vaccine. And Madam Speaker, I am so excited as I received my second dose this past weekend. I'm doing my part to keep my loved ones and my community safe, and I encourage all Canadians to do so. I can't wait to see family and friends reunited. And as you start your travel plans, Madam Speaker, remember to support the hospitality and tourism sector. So come and explore the Long Range Mountains and see all that Newfoundland and Labrador has to offer. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Madam Speaker, I am very pleased to be able to talk today about the 30th anniversary of L'Entre-Jeunes, an essential organization which has been in Mercier-Est in Montreal since 1991. It is 2 youth centers for youth between 12 and 17. And the centers offer about 20 hours of service to youth per week throughout the year. It enables the youth to participate in all sorts of activities under the supervision of various specialists and hosts. And it also offers a street program in order to meet the needs of youth who do not go to the centers or other traditional spaces. And it offers them all sorts of listening, support, and reference services. I'd like to thank the entire team of Entre-Jeunes for their incredible work. They are kind involved and dynamic people. They really care about youth in Mercier East.
L'honorable député de Madawaska-Restigouche.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Madam Speaker, today I would like to recognize another young entrepreneur in my region, Sophie Nadeau-Becker. She is 11 years old, and she already has a great business sense. Recently, she launched a family micro-business. She makes homemade treats and scarves for dogs. The trademark is Oh la la de Sophie. Once a week, Sophie, with her brother Felix, creates treats for dogs around the region.
The young entrepreneur is even looking for students to join her team this summer. Monsieur le Président, Madame la Présidente,
Madam Speaker, we admire these young entrepreneurs who keep impressing us and give us hope for the future of the economy.
To believe in their dreams, they may well become true. Entre-temps, j'encourage les gens.
Meanwhile, I would encourage everyone in Madawaska-Restigouche to treat your fluffy friends to Oh la la de Sophie products. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Speaker, I rise today as chair of the Canada Nordic-Baltic Parliamentary Friendship Group. 80 years ago, between June 14th and June 18th, 1941, citizens of the Baltic republics of Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania were forced at gunpoint and taken to communist prison camps. Many were elderly, and nearly a quarter were children. Thousands died on the way to Siberia, and many more faced executions when they arrived. 45,000 were only the first during what would become known as the June deportations. Tens of thousands more would follow. The horrific actions of the tyrannical Soviet government to assimilate the Baltic nations was unspeakably brutal, violent, and merciless. During those forced relocations, they silenced cultural and religious minorities and arrested, tortured, or killed perceived threats to the regime. Let us stand with the Baltic Canadians as we mark June 14th as a day of commemoration for all freedom-loving people. Thank you, Speaker.
The honourable member for Coastal Bay Central Notre Dame.
Madam Speaker, I would like to congratulate all graduates in my riding, but there is one in particular whose story I would like to share. She is Amanda Saunders at Memorial University in Newfoundland and Labrador, and her story is incredible. In 2018, while studying psychology, she was diagnosed with end-stage heart failure. Instead of a classroom, she went to a hospital in St. John's and finally to the Ottawa Heart Institute to receive a new heart. Inspired by her parents, Amanda vowed she would go back to school, and she did just that for 7 months. Unfortunately, 14 months after her transplant, she was then diagnosed with blood cancer. But Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, let's not think for one moment that this would stop Amanda Saunders. She continued her school during her treatments and all through the pandemic, so I am proud to announce that Amanda has graduated, and she plans to pursue her second degree. Congratulations, Amanda, and thanks for inspiring all of us.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This June marks National Indigenous History Month, and Monday, June 21st, is National Indigenous Peoples Day. It is a time where we honor the rich cultures and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people across Canada. Over the past few weeks, from all across this country, we have been confronted with the horrific news from Kamloops, where First Nations families had found missing children in unmarked graves at the Kamloops residential school site. Earlier this month, I stood with survivors and family members of residential schools across my own riding. There were 5 residential schools in Newfoundland and Labrador, and 4 of them were in the riding of Labrador. The intergenerational trauma of these institutions continues to this day amongst many Labradorians and Canadians. Indigenous people face poorer health outcomes, systemic racism, and injustices. The hard work continues for us as a government, and together with Indigenous...
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Madam Speaker, I stand today to highlight a constituent and friend that I know for over 15 years who has served in the Canadian Army. Major Alexander Sank has served our country for 28 years and has deployed across the globe representing Canada. He served in Bosnia and Sudan to help peacekeeping efforts. He continued working with the UN to track down war criminals. This guy is nothing short of courageous. After his time at the UN, he committed to help our veterans and increase awareness for our soldiers. I have had the honor of working with him on admittance salutes to help recognize our troops. Unfortunately, Alexander is in a battle of his own against cancer. I wanted to take this opportunity to wish this extraordinary Canadian the best treatment against this horrible disease. You got this, Alexander, and you have my support. Get well soon, my friend. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Nickel Belt. Yutani.
Madame la Présidente, le 24
Madam Speaker, on June 24th, we'll be celebrating Saint-Jean. That's an important day for Francophones and Francophiles. They can celebrate culture, language, and tradition, and also remember the sacrifices made by our parents and grandparents who defended our language. This month is also the 25th anniversary of Boréal College. The college has continually provided a quality education, and they are leaders locally and globally. Students at Boréal College have a learning environment that prioritizes their success, and the college has created solid links with industry.
To a vibrant francophone community in Nickel Belt, Greater Sudbury, et bonne victoire des Canadiens.
And also, I would like to wish the Habs great good luck. They're on their way to a 25th Stanley Cup.
Ole, ole.
The honourable member for Niagara West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This government's philosophy on growing the economy and creating jobs is doing everything possible to get in the way. What's more, the Prime Minister will add more national debt than all the previous Prime Ministers combined. All that money spent under his watch, and still, Canada has consistently had one of the highest unemployment rates in the G7. The unemployment rate climbed to 8.2%, losing 68,000 jobs last month. Small businesses are struggling, falling through the cracks, and a staggering amount will never reopen. Sean, a small business owner in my riding of Niagara West, in business for the last 30 years, had to take on over $160,000 in debt just to stay afloat. And that's after he spent all his life savings. The travel and tourism industry have been destroyed. Mr. Speaker, it's time for the Prime Minister and his party to own up to their failures and change course. Our small businesses and our economy are done waiting.
Honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The priority for Conservatives is getting Canada's economy reopened and back on track. The Liberal government's priority is ramming through Bill C-10, their internet censorship bill. I've heard from constituents across my riding who want to see this bill scrapped. New Brunswickers and Liberal-held ridings are frustrated by their MPs' failure to commit to opposing this bill, a bill that fundamentally alters how the internet will operate in Canada. Canadians are even more bewildered by how the government is so focused on Bill C-10 rather than pressing issues that impact their health and the economy. I will not support Bill C-10, a bill that puts freedom of expression in peril. The government should listen to Canadians who are telling them to abandon this poorly thought out bill that is focused on political power rather than protecting the freedom of speech that Canadians so rightly enjoy.
The honourable member for Churchill-Kawetnook-Aski.
Mr. Speaker, this past week, Canada's Prime Minister had quite the performance at the G7. He claimed that Canada is a champion on human rights, a benevolent provider of COVID-19 vaccines, and made commitments on infrastructure in the climate emergency. The world ought to know that the reality here at home is very different. On human rights, the Prime Minister has failed to recognize genocide against Indigenous peoples. He's failed to take decisive action to support First Nations in searching the grounds of the schools imposed on them so that they can bring their children home. On vaccines, our vaccine rollout has been deeply flawed, putting us well behind other major countries, and we haven't championed the IP waiver desperately needed at the world stage. On infrastructure, in my region, dozens of communities have no road access, suffer in overcrowded housing, and need hospitals. On the climate emergency, the government has been part of the problem, not the solution. Increasingly, Canadians see this Prime Minister and the government for who they are. Nice words, no action. First Nations deserve better. Canadians deserve better.
L'honorable député de Laurentides-Labelle.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to pay tribute to an important figure from my riding of Laurentides-Labelle, Monsieur Gilles Tinkler. He is a legend and an internationally renowned canoe racing champion. In fact, recently a biography of him was written. He is now 91. He is a real phenomenon. He has carried out so many exploits, both in the forest, on the water, and generally with the goal of promoting physical activity. One of his exploits was crossing Canada by boat in 1967 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the country. That took 104 days, and it was more than 5,200 kilometers. He did this as a way to renew the exploits of the early explorers. I'd like to congratulate him for all of his contributions to the region. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, it is with a heavy heart that I pay tribute to RCMP Constable Shelby Patton. Originally from Yorkton, Constable Patton was stationed at the detachment in Indian Head, Saskatchewan. Early Saturday morning in Wolseley, he stopped a stolen truck. Tragically, the criminals driving the truck ran over Constable Patton and ended his life, ripping apart a family and devastating a community. This young man, a 26-year-old hero who was killed in the prime of his life, was a husband, a brother, and a son. Shelby Patton, like the thousands of police officers across the country, literally put his life on the line to protect us. He went to work every day, knowing the risks, and was willing to make the greatest sacrifice to keep us safe. When we call 911, we often take it for granted that a police officer will come and help. Without people like Shelby Patton, who have the bravery and dedication to their communities, there wouldn't be anyone on the other end of the phone. I ask all my colleagues in this House to join me in sending our deepest condolences to the Patton family, to his fellow officers in his detachment, and to the communities of Indian Head and Wolseley, Saskatchewan.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. June 21 is National Indigenous Peoples Day. In 1996, the Governor-General of Canada, Romeo LeBlanc, proclaimed that June 21 as National Aboriginal Day. In 2017, our current Prime Minister announced the day would be renamed National Indigenous Peoples Day. The government's official website states, it's an opportunity for everyone to celebrate the cultural richness and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Why June 21? For centuries, many of our first inhabitants would celebrate the arrival of the warm weather and the pleasures of the summer solstice. The summer solstice is the day of the year with the longest light. It is the day with spiritual significance for many people, and it is a good time to celebrate Indigenous peoples and culture. For me, Mr. Speaker, I will personally also be reflecting on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls of action. Also, the number 215, and that all children matter. We all have a role to play, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what a weekend our Prime Minister had in the UK hobnobbing with the rich and famous. He seemed to have forgotten his mask a few times, and he won't have to quarantine like everyone else when he gets home, because after all, there's one set of rules for our Prime Minister and another set of rules for everyone else. But while he was enjoying his wine and cheese back here in Canada, our economy is shedding jobs, supply chains are crumbling, and housing prices are skyrocketing. Instead of trying to impress his celebrity friends, why isn't the Prime Minister focused on getting Canadians back to work?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives really care about the Canadian economy, if they really care about Canadian workers, and if they really care about Canadian businesses, let me suggest one simple and very practical thing that they can do, and that is support Bill C-30, the Budget Implementation Bill. This essential legislation extends the wage subsidy, rent support, and the CRB. We need it to finish the fight against COVID and to punch our way out of the COVID recession. The Conservatives need to support it.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the Prime Minister's so embroiled in scandal, it's no doubt he's not thinking about the economic storm that's brewing. He's been too busy rewarding his friends at the WE Foundation, appointing Liberal donors as judges.
I'm going to interrupt. I believe we have a point of order. Nous avons un rappel au règlement. Il y a un problème
Monsieur le
technique.
Président. Oui, en raison.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The volume between the English and French, rather the English and French channels are coming through at the same time with the interpretation, so I'm having a hard time hearing. Okay, now is this a problem that other people are experiencing online, or is it, yes, I am seeing people saying yes. I believe we have a technical difficulty here.
C'est quelque chose qu'on peut résoudre? Sure. Can you hear me well? Are the two languages at the same level, or are they fine? Is the translation working? We're still having a problem? On continue à avoir un problème? Okay. If you can bear with us for a moment, I appreciate your patience. Fixed. Can everyone hear me okay, or est-ce que you can hear me well in French? Vous m'entendez bien?
You can hear me now? Yes?
Okay, je pense qu'on a résolu notre...
Okay, I believe we've solved the problem.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, I'll let you take it from the top.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Well, as I was saying, our Prime Minister is so embroiled in scandal, it's not a doubt that he's not thinking about the economic storm that's brewing here. He's been very busy rewarding his friends at the WE Foundation, appointing Liberal donors as judges, and covering up sexual misconduct in the military. Now he's got no time left to deal with issues like people losing their jobs and businesses shutting down.
Start again. This question sooner or later, I'm sure. I'll have to interrupt the honourable member. Non, pas de problème. J'apprécie le fait que vous le...
Parce que c'est exactement la même...
So I'm just having the same problem here, and I know I'm not alone. People have written to me to say that they also are not hearing anything because both of the feeds are coming in at the same volume.
On va laisser ça avec...
Okay, so we're going to hand this over to the technical support people for a couple of minutes to see if they can sort this out.
From one language to the other, which would link it to the...
Okay, alors, I'm going to conduct a very unscientific test. Can everyone who's out there listening in French hear me in French at different levels? Non, c'est encore un problème. Okay, alors, l'autre question...
Okay, now the next question. For those who are listening in English to the English interpretation, can you hear this correctly?
Okay. It's French to English that is the issue? Okay, we'll get that. English to French, I'm sorry, yes. Okay, we'll wait and see what our technical folks we can do with this. Translation happens, and the translators will bring that over, or the interpreters, my apologies, will be interpreting what is being said. And once we get the volumes done right, or at the same level, we can continue from there. Everything's good? Is everything working okay? Vous m'entendez bien français? Everything's working well? Non, encore non. Now, okay. Est-ce que le problème est concentrated on one individual? Nous avons des gens qui...
So we do have some francophones who are hearing everything fine.
It is in one location. Hein? Vous m'entendez très bien. Je suis content de...
Okay, you can hear me well. I'm glad to hear that.
Is it possible to check with her interpretation to see if it's anything set on her computer? Yes. Vous m'entendez bien? La majorité.
You can hear me? Okay. So.
Technical folks to check in with the honourable member from Manicouagan to make sure that it's not just her computer that needs to be adjusted sometimes. I'm sorry? Okay, Madame, excuse, l'honorable député.
The honourable member for Manicouagan, is everything okay now? I'm just going to wait for IT to call me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right, very good.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure the government will have a very substantial answer because this will have been the third time they've heard the question, which is, of course the Prime Minister isn't thinking about the economy because he's so busy dealing with all of his scandals, whether it's the WE scandal, whether it's appointing his Liberal donors as judges, or covering up sexual misconduct in the military. Let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, it's hard work for the Prime Minister to put the interests of Canadians first when he's so focused on polishing up his own image and helping out his Liberal friends.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about who is really concerned about supporting Canadian jobs and Canadian businesses and who instead prefers to play partisan games. Our government is working hard today in the House to pass the budget, which will extend the wage subsidy and rent support and create a new Canada Recovery hiring credit. That's what Canada needs, Mr. Speaker, and it is the Conservatives who are blocking it.
Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you're not going to believe this, but this weekend, a top officer with direct connections to the Vance investigation was golfing with General Vance. Oh. Not only, Mr. Speaker, does this show zero respect for Operation Honour and zero respect for victims, it shows there's zero respect for this defence minister among the top brass. The minister has refused to stand up for victims and continues to cover up bad behaviour of his buddies. When will the minister admit the top ranks of the military is fast becoming a shambles, and it's a direct result of this minister's failures?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our members and employees deserve the institution in which they can have full confidence, and we're working to deliver on the reforms that will bolster our members' confidence in the military justice system. The Acting Chief of Defence Staff has been reviewing this matter very closely, and it falls within his responsibility in the chain of command. The Acting Chief of Defence has informed me that the Vice Chief of Defence Staff is no longer in his role, effective immediately. And our government is working towards a complete institutional culture change in the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Louis.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party has created the Liberal List. What is it? Well, it's a list of Liberal Party members, supporters, volunteers, and donors. Well, there's no problem with that, Mr. Speaker, but there's a difference between the Liberal Party of Canada and the Government of Canada. My question to the Minister of Justice is very simple. Did the Minister of Justice or anyone in his office or department consult the Liberal List before appointing a judge? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, when our government was elected in 2015, we set up a more rigorous, open, and accountable system. Our appointments are always based on merit. They're also based on the expertise of the various candidates and the recommendations of the Independent Advisory Council. We are proud of the judges who have been appointed since our process was set up. We've found judges from various political affiliations and backgrounds. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, honestly, it's sad to see the Minister of Justice, a man with a very impressive judicial history, who has fallen into partisanship. And he's not able to answer this simple question clearly. The answer is clear, that they did consult the Liberal List, but he didn't have the courage and dignity to say so. Now, there are two lists in the Liberal Party. They're the list of cronies and everyone else. Why did the government consult Liberal List to appoint judges? It just doesn't make sense. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to quote an article from the Globe and Mail concerning our process for judicial appointments under Harper. They use their local lists of donors to find lawyers, university teachers, and other people who meet their criteria. Mr. Speaker, we changed all that. We're not going to take any lessons from the Conservatives. Unlike them, we have an open process that leads to merit-based appointments. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, 50 years later, the federal government will finally recognize French as the official language of Quebec. Half a century later. Next week, they'll be recommending an amazing new TV series called Three's Company. On a more serious note, this has made the government realize that in the Quebec Official Languages Act, Quebec's version of the Act, Quebec made French the language of work. So will the government of Quebec let Quebec make federal offices function in French, as should have been the case half a century ago? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, we recognize the importance of the French language in Quebec and across the country. Why? Because French is being eroded and it's in decline, and so we need to take action. And that's what we're doing. My colleague knows well that we tabled a project to reform the Official Languages Act that recognizes that in places with a strong Francophone presence, we will recognize the right to work in French, the right to be served in French as a consumer, and the right not to be discriminated against. I hope to be able to work with her in the coming weeks and months on this issue. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, the federal government will recognize that French is the official language of Quebec. But what does that mean, an official language, Mr. Speaker? When Canada defines its two official languages in its constitution, it specifies that English and French have, and I quote, equal rights and privileges as to their use in the institutions of the Parliament and Government of Canada. So, since the Minister recognizes French as the only official language of Quebec, is she announcing that this will be the only language used in Parliament and in the Government of Canada in Quebec? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The federal government will always act, as far as it's able to do so within its jurisdiction, to protect both official languages, because it's important that we respect not only our Constitution, but also a national unity. That said, French needs to be protected further because it is declining. And so we have committed to do more, and we will do more. In the coming days and weeks, I'll have the opportunity to speak about our future bill on official languages, which, as my colleagues know, is currently on the order paper.
To New Westminster, Burnaby.
This Liberal government is trying to slash emergency benefits to below poverty level for Canadians who need the benefits to put food on the table. This government gives billions of dollars in subsidies to oil companies, $750 billion in liquidity supports to banks, and Liberals refuse to impose a wealth tax that would make the ultra-rich pay their fair share. But they have no problem at all taking away money that Canadians desperately need to keep a roof over their head. Why won't this Liberal government do the right thing and stop slashing the benefits that so many Canadians rely on?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me just say that if the NDP truly wants to support Canadian workers, let me suggest one simple thing that they can do. Support Bill C-30. This budget bill will extend the income supports to the end of September, and Canadians desperately need that to happen. So, Mr. Speaker, it is by supporting Bill C-30 that we can act together to provide Canadian workers with the support they need to finish the fight against COVID.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
The Old Boys Club is at it again. While still under investigation, General Vance played a game of golf with senior leaders involved in his investigation. Like Major Kelly Brennan said, Vance believes he's untouchable and owns the military police. The Liberals have had 6 years to make substantive changes to the toxic culture in the military, and resignations aside, that toxicity is still there. And the government's response? Another task force. Yeah. How can women in the Canadian Armed Forces trust that their allegations will be taken seriously when their accuser is still treated like a VIP?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our members and employees deserve the institution in which they can have full confidence, and we are working to deliver reforms that will bolster our members' confidence in the military justice system. And our government is working towards a complete institutional culture change in the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces. And as I stated earlier, Mr. Speaker, the Acting Chief of Defence Staff has informed me that the Vice Chief of Defence Staff is no longer in his role effective immediately. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government isn't answering my questions, so I ask again. We know from peer-reviewed academic papers, which are public documents, that a Chinese military scientist, Fei Yuyan, of the People's Liberation Army, was granted access to work in the government's Winnipeg lab, a level 4 facility where the world's most dangerous viruses are handled. How did this individual gain access to the lab in apparent contravention of security policy?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of this way, the National Microbiology Lab has been working so hard to protect Canadians through COVID-19. In fact, I want to thank the hard-working lab employees during this National Week of Recognition of Public Service. In fact, they were one of the first labs in the world to be able to create a PCR test from the original genetic sequence. We have incredible scientists and researchers here in Canada helping to lead the way.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government still isn't answering the questions. Another question. According to the WHO's Director General, the G7 discussed the Wuhan lab leak theory last weekend. President Biden has directed U.S. intelligence agencies to report back in late August on whether the pandemic came from human contact with an animal or from a lab accident at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Given that government scientists at the Winnipeg lab closely worked with the Wuhan lab, will the government tell us if they are making available government scientists and their relevant documents, including lab notes, to U.S. investigators?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, like many countries around the world, we have always been clear that we need to understand the origins of COVID-19, and we will work with our international partners to ensure there is a robust and continued investigation into the origins of this virus. It is important not just for Canadians, but indeed for the entire world so that we can prevent another epidemic of this kind.
L'honorable député de Charlebourg.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, twice the Canada-China Committee has asked the Liberal government to provide the unredacted documents regarding the security breach at the Winnipeg lab. On both occasions, they refused. We then introduced and passed a motion in this House to make those documents available. But instead of complying with the order of this House, the Prime Minister is obstructing the work of the committee by sending the documents to the Parliamentary Committee on National Security to ensure that Canadians never get the information because they have to keep it secret. How can the Prime Minister be so shameless? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite knows that is not true, that I have fully released unredacted documents to the appropriate committee, to the committee of all parliamentarians who have the appropriate security clearance to review these documents. We will never play games with national security, Mr. Speaker. There is an appropriate place to review those documents. They are there, and I await the committee's findings.
L'honorable député de Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Minister won't have the results because the committee has to keep the information secret and only the Prime Minister will know. But on another subject, we learned that Lieutenant General Mike Rouleau went golfing with former Chief of Staff Jonathan Vance, even though Vance is under investigation for sexual misconduct. Rouleau has authority over the Army Provost Marshal, who's in charge of the Canadian Forces Investigation Services that is investigating Vance. The outcome of the investigation is now tainted. The lack of leadership by the Minister of Defence is such that he has no control over his department or chain of command, and everyone does as they please. So again, what message does this send to the women of the Canadian Armed Forces? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a member very well knows, the Acting Chief of Defence Staff has been reviewing this matter very closely as it falls within his responsibilities in the chain of command. And the Acting Chief of Defence Staff has informed me that the Vice Chief of Defence Staff is no longer in his role, effective immediately. And our government is working towards a complete institutional culture change in the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's military is in crisis, and those at the highest levels know they are untouchable. General Vance is under police investigation, but that didn't stop the boys from enjoying a round of golf. This brazen act by two of the military's most senior commanders is a public declaration they are neither impartial nor think the rules apply to them. The problem starts at the top of the chain of command with this defense minister. When will he admit he has failed in his duties as minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're absolutely committed to making sure that we have that culture change so that everybody who joins the Canadian Armed Forces have a place to work free from harassment. And as I stated, Mr. Speaker, the Acting Chief of Defence Staff is currently reviewing this matter very closely as it falls within his responsibility in the chain of command, and that the Acting Chief of Defence Staff has informed me that the Vice Chief of the Vice Chief of Defence Staff is no longer in his role, effective immediately. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
And yet, Mr. Speaker, despite months of devastating testimony and 4 generals under police investigation, the Old Boys Club is stronger than ever. General Rouleau has the power to intervene in military police investigations, and golfing with Vance sends a clear message that the fix is in. Vance and the senior military brass are untouchable. By turning a blind eye, the defense minister ensures that the military's toxic culture can continue unchecked. Will the minister admit he's part of the problem and not part of the solution?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our members and employees deserve an institution that they can have full confidence with. And I've been working from day one to making sure that we create the institutional culture change that is absolutely necessary. And that's why in a statement from the Canadian Forces Provost Marshal, he clarified with regards to an ongoing military police investigation involving sexual misconduct, that he has complete independence from the chain of command in the conduct of policing duties. And that said, Mr. Speaker, as I stated, the Acting Chief of Defence Staff has informed me that the Vice Chief of Defence Staff has stepped down. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals have announced that they're no longer using their liberalist approach for judicial appointments. As I said before, we, the Bloc Québécois, are happy when the government recognizes that we're right, so this is a good step forward. But it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is that the Liberals appoint Liberal donors as judges. At the same time that the CBC learned that the Liberals would stop tracking their donors through Liberalist, the same sources confirmed that they're doing the same checks through Elections Canada. But whether they go through Liberalist or Elections Canada, these are still political appointments. So when will the minister institute an impartial process? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has taken significant steps to have a better judicial appointments process, a process that guarantees that our judicial system reflects this country. All appointments are based on merit. There is no partisan consideration in the decision-making process. When we formed government, we eliminated partisanship that existed under the Harper process and set up a more independent and rigorous process. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the appointments that we've made and the process that we have. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. This is the same recording we've been hearing for the last year. We know that the judges are competent. That's not the problem. Before, they were using Liberalists to identify donors, and now they go through Elections Canada. Whichever way you go, it's the same. But going through Elections Canada is clearly worth it. With Elections Canada, you can see who gave money to different parties, like the Bloc, for example. So you can say, oh, that guy gave money to the Bloc Québécois. Scrap that candidate. So they can favor their friends, and they can also hurt other candidates. Why not have a non-partisan process, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to quote the Ethics Commissioner. Making a donation to a political party does not indicate that a person is necessarily a crony. It's entirely legal to make donations. We want qualified candidates from all backgrounds and all political affiliations to come forward. And we are disappointed that the opposition is turning this into a partisan game. Our government will always attempt to meet the needs of the judiciary and appoint judges based on merit from all political affiliations. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. What doesn't make sense is that if a Liberal makes a donation, that's fine, but if he's appointed as a judge for that reason, that's the problem. It's true that there's a selection committee that sorts through the applications that are referred to the minister, but the problem is that the Liberals receive these recommendations and then they look at the names and say, well, who in here is our friend? Worse, Mr. Speaker, La Presse revealed last year that if the Prime Minister's office wanted to make sure that a good Liberal crony made the list, the PMO would call the Justice Minister's office directly to demand accountability. So when will the Minister put an end to this cronyism? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what the Honourable Member is saying is clearly false. Our new judicial appointments process has led to concrete results for Canadians, and it will create a judicial body that reflects the rich heritage and diverse backgrounds of Canadians. There are a number of new judges who identify as visible minorities, Indigenous peoples, peoples with disabilities, people from various ethnic backgrounds, and the LGBTQ community. With this new process, 58% of appointments have been women, 16% are visible minorities, 9% identify as LGBTQ, and 5% as Indigenous.
Number 4, Abbotsford.
Today we learned that a Toronto developer is purchasing hundreds of houses and converting them to rentals, eliminating the dream of home ownership for even more Canadians. For months we've been demanding that this government stabilize house prices, come up with a plan to restore the dream of home ownership for Canadians. Sadly, all the recent budget did was impose a tiny 1% tax on foreign owners, which will do nothing to make housing more affordable. Why is this minister failing the families he's supposed to be serving?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has prioritized housing, affordability and affordable housing through the National Housing Strategy. That's why Budget 2021 is the 5th consecutive budget, which plans to invest $2.5 billion and reallocate $1.3 billion in funding to speed up the construction, repair, and or support 35,000 affordable housing units. Budget 2021 makes numerous investments into affordable housing, yet the Conservative Party has pledged to vote against it. So the Conservative playbook is open now. Fake outrage on the House of Commons when it comes time to vote to help Canadians with housing needs, vote against the budget.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Fake outrage, Mr. Speaker. This Liberal government can't hide from the fact that thousands of Canadians are being forced to abandon their dream of owning their home. This government has had 6 years to act. Nothing. Now developers are taking advantage of skyrocketing house prices by scooping up houses and turning them into rentals, removing even more houses from the market. Meanwhile, this government stands idly by as the home ownership dreams of Canadian families fade away. Why won't this minister act?
Full Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative record on housing is $250 million a year spent on affordable housing. We have spent more than $27 billion on affordable housing since we came into office. In Budget 2021 alone, there is $315 million more for Canadian women and children fleeing domestic violence in more rental supplements. What did the Conservatives do? They pledged to vote against that. Building more rental construction across major urban centers. What is the Conservative Party's position on that? Vote against it. So it's fake outrage in question period. Vote against real help for Canadians with respect to affordable housing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, it's not the quantity of the spending, it's the quality of the spending. We have an affordability crisis in this country. The price of everything is going up. Groceries, gasoline, clothing, lumber. In fact, inflation is now well above the government's target of 2%, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better. We're also in a full-blown housing crisis, with millions of Canadians realizing that their dream of home ownership is now out of reach. Why has this government made life so unaffordable for so many Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mrs. Speaker, the first-time homebuyer incentive allows first-time Canadian homebuyers help from our government to buy housing. And what is the Conservative Party doing for that? They're voting against it. What did they provide first-time homebuyers in their time in office? A mere $750 in a tax credit. Meanwhile, we are expanding the first-time homebuyer incentive so that more and more Canadians can have access to affordable housing. In addition to that, we're spending more money than ever before across all the different spectrums of the housing needs of Canadians. And the Conservatives have said that they'll vote against the budget. That's their real record. They're entitled to their opinions. But
the honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, 104 potential graves of children have now been found at the former Brandon Indian Residential School. Chief Bone is calling on the government to, in quotes, enact legislation to protect all residential school cemeteries. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs called for all documents related to the schools to be released. And Southern Chiefs Organization in Manitoba is calling for, in quotes, the UN and its High Commissioner for Human Rights to provide oversight. Will this government immediately heed these calls from impacted nations to respond to this genocide?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for her question, and our hearts are with all of these communities dealing with these stark realities in terms of the discoveries at Tk'emlúps. We will be there as a government to support all communities with whatever they need for healing and gatherings, commemoration, or archaeological expertise. We will be there for all the communities affected by this terrible, terrible discovery.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
How ironic, on the morning that the Prime Minister defied Parliament and went back to court to try and quash the Human Rights Tribunal ruling that found him guilty of systemic discrimination against Indigenous kids, we learned more about the medical catastrophe facing children in Saskatchewan, where there's now 144 children and babies suffering from COVID. They begged this government for help, and all they got was a Band-Aid. If the government spent less time fighting Indigenous kids in court, they could have been focused on keeping Indigenous children safe and healthy. When is this Prime Minister going to end his toxic legal war against Indigenous children in this country?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, since the member opposite asked two questions, I can give the House the update on the very concerning situation in Saskatchewan. Indeed, the outbreak is among the children, among the unimmunized. The situation, sadly, will get worse before it gets better. I have been speaking to Chief Friday over the course of the weekend and assure them that we will be there for him. The House would indeed appreciate knowing as well that 15 Canadian Rangers has been mobilized in Saskatchewan and 6 additional nurses have been deployed for a total of 15. We're actively assessing and reassessing as the days go on, but we'll be there for the people of Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in recent weeks, I've been deeply disturbed by the rise of anti-Semitic acts in my community in York Centre and across Canada. We have seen Jewish businesses, synagogues, and memorials vandalized, and Jewish Canadians have faced acts of violence and intimidation in our communities. These acts of hate have no place in Canada. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth please tell this House how our government is combating anti-Semitism here in Canada today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government remains committed to combating anti-Semitism and all forms of hate, prejudice, and discrimination through measures such as Canada's anti-racism strategy, in which we adopted the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. Last week, our government announced that we will work alongside the Honourable Irwin Cotler, Canada's Special Envoy for Preserving Holocaust Remembrance and Combating Anti-Semitism, on an emergency national summit on anti-Semitism, which was advocated for by many hardworking colleagues, including the member for York Centre and partners such as CEJA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
The Minister of Natural Resources sent 2 Liberal staffers to Newfoundland in January at a cost of thousands of taxpayer dollars as the pandemic raged, and just in time for the provincial election. Predictably, these same staff were campaigning for the provincial Liberals. During a pandemic, while businesses were closed and staff were working from home, the minister had taxpayers pick up the tab under questionable reasoning. Will the Liberal Party repay Canadian taxpayers for sending ministerial staffers to help their friends in the provincial Liberal Party get re-elected during the pandemic?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, staff travel to Newfoundland to support operational requirements on the ground in the discharge of my ministerial duties. All rules were followed to the letter. They adhered to public health guidelines, including the mandatory 14-day quarantine upon entering the province. They also adhered to the Treasury Board guidelines for ministers' offices and only campaigned on their day off on one Saturday. Mr. Speaker, I and my office, we hold ourselves to a high standard. Let me reiterate, all rules were followed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
These staffers were in Newfoundland on the taxpayer dollar during a pandemic and were campaigning for the provincial Liberals. It's crystal clear. While Canadians were locked down, losing their livelihoods, losing their lives, the minister was skirting the rules to help his friends. The Liberals operate under two sets of rules, one for their friends and one for the rest of us. So, will the Liberal Party reimburse taxpayers for this clearly partisan trip?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what's crystal clear is there was no interference here. They participated in their capacity as private citizens on one Saturday on their day off. Let me quote the Treasury Board guidelines, which I might add were put in place by the previous Conservative government. Section 3.5.4 states, if a member becomes engaged in campaign activities on a part-time basis, his or her involvement must be on his or her own time, not during regular office hours. Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what happened here. All rules followed to the letter. Crystal clear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Mégantic-Lérable.
The honourable member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, obviously the people of Newfoundland and Labrador must be very upset about what happened here. Who said that? The Conservative leader of Newfoundland and Labrador. Two of the Minister of Natural Resources staffers campaigning for a provincial Liberal candidate at Canadian taxpayers' expense. Geordie Summers-Lubar and Ian Cameron charged nearly $9,000 to campaign for a Liberal friend. Does the Liberal Party intend to reimburse Canadians for the minister's excessive partisanship? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's try not to, this is riling up an outrage machine. Let me be very clear. All rules were followed to the letter. My staff adhered to all public health guidelines, including the 14-day mandatory quarantine, and the Treasury Board guidelines for Minister's Office put in place by the previous Conservative government. Look, we can continue with these, petty personal attacks against hardworking staff. It was their day off. We will continue to work hard for Canadians on the issues that matter. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, this is ridiculous. Those staffers from the minister's office would never have campaigned in Newfoundland and Labrador if their expenses hadn't been approved by the minister himself. They arrived in the province on the day the election was called and left weeks later. In the age of telework, would the minister have us believe he needed his aides with him in the middle of a pandemic? Baloney, Mr. Speaker. Treasury Board guidelines are clear. Door knocking is not minister's office work. Will the Liberal government reimburse taxpayers, yes or no? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the rules of Treasury Board, the rules were followed crystal clear. Let me be very clear about something else. What happens on my staff members' time off is their business. I will not be policing what they do on their time off. On one Saturday, they campaigned. I will leave it there, Mr. Speaker, and other than to say and assure this House, all guidelines followed to the letter. Crystal clear. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Manicouagan.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the government's initiative, all parties have just adopted a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, a day to honor the memory of Indigenous children taken from their families and put in residential schools. Meanwhile, this very morning, the government was in court against Indigenous children who were also ripped from their families and put in foster homes. This hypocrisy is beyond belief, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable
Président, et laissez-moi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to be crystal clear. Myself and the Prime Minister, we've said this loud and clear. Any child who suffered the consequences of discrimination under the foster care system will be fairly and equitably compensated. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are in court against Indigenous children who were ripped from their families in 2005. And I would remind you that in 2005, the Liberals were in power. 15 years later, they're still in court. So I invite the Prime Minister to do a favor for whoever the Prime Minister is 15 years from now. Will he put an end to this litigation? Will he spare the future Prime Minister from having to address the House like he has so often had to do, to apologize for a dastardly decision that could be reversed today? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I could spend a lot of time talking about all the things this government has done since it took office in 2015. We've invested billions in reforms, and the member must know that what is being challenged in this case is the proportionality, not the source or the need for fair and equitable compensation. That we will do.
The Liberals have shown the USA and the world that it's okay to openly disrespect our Canadian oil and gas sector. The Liberals' anti-oil and gas crusade has real-world consequences. Right. The proof is the cancelling of Keystone XL, Energy East, Pacific Northwest, Northern Gateway, Aurora LNG, Grassy Point LNG, Saguenay LNG. The Liberals' reimagined agenda has set the course of the newest anti-oil project, with Governor Whitmore trying to cancel Line 5. Mr. Speaker, did the Prime Minister even attempt to talk to President Biden about Line 5, or are we just going to add it to the ever-growing list of cancelled Canadian energy projects?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about lists then. TMX approved it, building it, 7,000 jobs created so far. Line 3 pipeline, approved it, another 7,000 jobs created. NGTL 2021, we approved it. Thousands of jobs created. LNG Canada, we're building it. Orphan and inactive wells, $1.7 billion, tens of thousands of jobs to be created. And of course, the wage subsidy, more than 500,000 workers kept in their jobs in a pandemic in Alberta alone. That is our record, Mr. Speaker. Merci.
Member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, last week, the Keystone XL pipeline was the latest casualty in the Prime Minister's assault on Canada's energy sector. So true. This follows the cancellations of Energy East, Northern Gateway, and several other projects that would have meant thousands of well-paying jobs, along with significant economic growth across Western Canada. So when will the Prime Minister just admit that he wants to see Canada's energy sector shut down entirely?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will reiterate to this House once again how deeply disappointed we are with the U.S. decision on KXL. Let me also remind members of this House that the government of Alberta is also deeply disappointed. I know that because our governments worked hand in glove the whole way on KXL. Workers in Alberta are looking to the future and to the opportunities it holds. And last week, I stood alongside Premier Kennedy to announce a $1.3 billion investment in hydrogen. It includes the development of a new large-scale clean hydrogen facility in the Edmonton area. It's going to create thousands of jobs for Albertans, and we will work with the Alberta government to build a low-emissions energy future that leaves no energy worker behind, as we will with all provincial governments. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Desnité, Mississippi Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, over the past several weeks, reconciliation has become a very important topic in this House. The infrastructure, health, and education gaps faced by First Nations across Canada will not be solved by government programs alone. In northern Saskatchewan, the forest industry provides tremendous opportunity to address these gaps. Last month, the U.S. announced plans to double the tariffs, literally taking money out of the pockets of Indigenous people. When will the government finally get a softwood lumber agreement? And can the minister confirm that 100% of the duties collected will be returned?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on softwood lumber, we remain disappointed with the American action on softwood lumber. We will continue to work with the administration. Our focus will be, as it always has been, on the workers within the industry and ensuring that we have an industry that continues to prosper and grow in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Palan. Mr. Speaker, in this pandemic, we've seen how important our digital capacity is to meet the urgent needs of Canadians. Our government has risen to the occasion and made sure Canadians get the benefits and programs they need on time. We know there's more work to be done. Can the Minister of Digital Government update the House on her plans to continue the important work of providing essential digital services to Canadians? Thank you. The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Alfred Palan for his question and his hard work. Canada's digital government strategy shows that we have been able to respond quickly to meet the needs of Canadians. Our strategy focuses on 4 pillars: modernizing the way we build and manage IT, improving government service, using secure tools and data for cooperative efforts, and making sure we have the diverse talent with the digital skills to meet the expectations of Canadians.
Okanagan, let me start over. The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has had 5 years to reach a softwood lumber agreement, and he's failed. In fact, in this place, he has referred to the subject of softwood lumber about 4 times each year of the 5 years he's been in office. Now, contrast that to the subject about his predecessor, Stephen Harper, who he has referenced over 220 times. Simple question, Mr. Speaker. When will this Prime Minister start getting focused on his job, like getting a softwood lumber agreement rather than passing the buck to others or putting the blame on his predecessors before him?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear, these American duties are completely unjustified and, quite frankly, counterproductive since they hurt workers and businesses on both sides of the border. The minister has raised this with President Biden directly, with Ambassador Tai as well, and our government continues to press for a negotiated settlement because a negotiated settlement is in the best interest of both of our countries. But we will do whatever it takes to defend our softwood lumber industry, including instigating litigation under NAFTA and under CUSMA and before the WTO. All options are on the table. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Springwater, Oro-Medonte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The cost to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in Barrie now averages $1,530 per month, the 5th highest rental rate in Canada. In May, the average home price was $720,000, a 38% increase from last year. Everyone, especially first-time buyers and renters, are finding these prices out of reach. Last week, Conservative Opposition Day motion had a tangible solution to address affordable housing in Canada, what the Liberals voted against. It's clear the Liberals' housing plan isn't working. Why is the Prime Minister ignoring the housing needs of Canadians?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are investing more money than ever before in affordable housing, including reallocating money from the Rental Construction Financing Initiative to turn commercial buildings into affordable housing. And what are the Conservatives doing about that? They're voting against that. Their plan had no real solutions that even came close to the progress that we've made and the strong foundation that we're building on the National Housing Strategy. They spent meager amounts of money in their time in office. They had no leadership, they had no strategy, and now they're faking outrage but actually voting against real measures to help Canadians with that.
The Honourable Member for Battle River, Crowfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A fixed-income senior recently shared how he was excited about the new Canada Greener Homes grant to upgrade his coal-fired furnace. His excitement quickly turned to disappointment after learning the details of the program. With the rising cost of living, he cannot afford to pay up front for the pre- and post-Energide evaluations, let alone the cost to replace the furnace itself. This is yet another example of the Ottawa Knows Best bureaucratic-heavy policy that clearly misses the mark. It makes great talking points, but leaves regular folks behind. When will the Liberals actually figure out a plan that helps Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for the question. Certainly, the focus is on addressing affordability concerns in the context of actually working to reduce carbon emissions from all sources. The $5,000 subsidy is focused very much on enabling homeowners to retrofit their homes to increase energy efficiency, to reduce carbon emissions, and to ultimately reduce their energy bills. That is certainly an element of a broader program to address the crisis that is climate change in a manner that will enable economic progress.
Honourable Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, today the Minister of Canadian Heritage announced the appointees to the first office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. The Indigenous Language Act is historic and demonstrates this government's commitment to support the efforts of Indigenous people to reclaim, revitalize, maintain, and strengthen Indigenous languages. The establishment of the Office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages achieves a concrete milestone in the implementation of the Act. Can the Minister tell us how the Commissioner and directors will support the efforts of Indigenous peoples?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the member for the Northwest Territories for his question and his tireless advocacy on this issue. Language is at the heart of cultural identity. It shapes who we are and our perspective. When we speak our language, we share stories, pass on knowledge, and create bonds for generations. This morning, I had the pleasure and honor to announce the appointment of Commissioner Ronald Ignace and Directors Joan Gray-Eyes, Georgina Liberty, and Robert Want to the very first Office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. This is an historic day. Mr. Speaker, I have every confidence that the office will bring exceptional strength that will effectively support the aspiration of Indigenous people in Sierra.
The Honourable Member for Esquimalt Saanich-Sooke.
Well, Mr. Speaker, here we are in National Blood Donor Week again with the ban on blood donations from gay men, men who have sex with men, and trans women still in place. As always, I continue to call on friends and family to step up and donate in the place of those of us who remain banned. On Friday, the Liberals lost in federal court in their attempt to have themselves excluded from responsibility for the ban. The Minister of Health claims she's waiting for Canadian Blood Services and Héma-Québec to give her a recommendation to lift the ban. On what date did she explicitly request a new policy from CBS and Héma-Québec, and what deadline did she give them for a response?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I agree with the member opposite that there's no place for discrimination against the community. And I would say that it is important that we continue to press on. We've done more in the last 5 years than had been done in the previous 10. And of course, until 2013, Canada had a lifetime restriction on blood donation for men who have sex with men. In 2019, it was reduced to 3 months. There's more to do, and we'll continue to push Canadian Blood Services and Héma-Québec until we can end this practice.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver-Grenville.
Recent rumblings over the Constitution are not without significance, causing some to ask if we're necessarily heading towards renewed constitutional talks. If so, the environment must be top of mind. In 2008, Ecuador's constitution gave nature legally enforceable rights to exist, flourish, and evolve, the first country to do so. In 2014, Te Whare, the home of the Tuhu people, became the first natural feature in New Zealand to be recognized as a legal person with rights. Like New Zealand, and prior to any possible constitutional change, will this government consider granting legal personhood to significant natural features in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has recognized the importance of preserving the environment, fighting greenhouse gas emissions, and fighting global warming. It is a priority, as my colleagues in that ministry have put before the House. We have fought that battle, Mr. Speaker, all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Mr. Speaker, we will look at all options. I'm not going to commit to any specific thing suggested by the honourable member, but I thank her for her question. And we certainly will always consider all options that will help us advance the cause of fighting climate change.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have today for question period. Le temps de la capitale.
That's all the time we have today for questions.
Honourable member for Malpeque.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to make a personal point of privilege. I'll not take much of the House's time because I know that time is very precious in this place. However, I believe strongly that it is in this place, the House of Commons, that announcements that affect members should be made. Today, I am announcing that I will not be reoffering as the candidate in the riding of Malpeque in the next federal election. I will be joining with others not running tomorrow evening for speeches and to give heartfelt thank yous. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the election is scheduled for October 2023, but rumors abound there may be one before then. Certainly the media seems to be pushing that rumor. And in the off chance that an election is held before then, I want to give others ample time to consider representing my party in the riding of Malpeque. Mr. Speaker, it is close to 28 years since I was first elected to this chamber, and when there in person, I'm always in awe of its traditions, its history, and the opportunity it provides for members to have a say in the legislative mandate and governance of this country. I'm proud to be a Canadian, and yes, Mr. Speaker, there's been moments, as recent events showed, that none of us are proud of in our history. However, I do believe we learn and move forward. We are recognized as one of the best places of which to live in the world. As you state in your daily prayer, Speaker, quote, the freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy, end quote. It's been my honor to work with and serve the residents of Malpeque for nine terms. Thank you for the opportunity to say these few words, Mr. Speaker, and we'll join with others tomorrow evening. Thank you.
It being 3:15 p.m., pursuant to order made on Monday, January 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the sub-amendment of Mr. Garretson on the amendment to the motion to extend the sitting hours of the House. Call in the members. La question est la suivante.
The question is the following one.
Jagger moved that pursuant to Standing Order 27-1, commencing on Friday. Dispense, may I dispense? Okay, thank you. Now, I'll just Now the amendment, Mr. Richards, seconded by Mr. Deltel, moved that the following amendment, that the motion be amended by deleting all the words after the word commencing and substituting the following. Du lundi 14 juin 2021